Okay, good morning. It is Wednesday morning today, about 11 o'clock, and we are having pizzas Thursday evening, so you want to start a day and a half ahead of time. You want to time that with your starter being active and healthy, which I'll go over in the other video. And yeah, I'm using a Gosney recipe, not Uni, and I'll send a link for that to you as well. This recipe is much more easier than the Uni one, so it just makes a bit more sense. So to start, you just mix the flours. So it is 300 of bread flour and 200 of 00 flour. 00 flour is also called pasta flour, and it's basically just really fine flour. I couldn't find that in the supermarket, so I got this one from Waitrose, which is called sponge flour, but it's kind of just the same thing. It's just really fine flour. Yeah. So 300 of this. In there. And then 200 of the other one. Like that. And you just mix the flours and the salt to start with. So there's 15 grams of salt in there as well. Okay. And this recipe makes, I think it's 3 to 4. It makes 4 small pizzas or 3 big pizzas. So you might want to double it if you're making quite a few, because usually if there's 4 of us, we'd double this recipe and we'd have more than 1 each. But yeah, and then you mix that together, just like that. And then put that to the side. And in a separate bowl, you want to do the water and the starter together. So it is, I think, 310 grams of water. If you have a thermometer, that's good, because you want your water to be, I think it's anywhere in between 27 and 29 degrees. If it's any hotter, it'll kill the starter that you're putting in. If it's any colder, it won't be warm enough for it to activate and work. If you don't have a thermometer, it's just kind of like lukewarm. So it's not too hot but not too cold. So that's 310. In there. And 80 grams of, calls it mature starter, but basically all that means is just healthy starter that you've been growing. And like I was saying in the other video, I'm making this on Wednesday morning. The last time I fed this was late last night, Tuesday night. So it's had about 9-10 hours. You can see there, that's the rubber band is where it was when I fed it, and it's grown to there. So that's when I know it's healthy. Yes. In my other video, I think I'll show the float test as well. Actually, I'll do that now. So you can always tell it's healthy by if it's doubled. You can also tell if it's ready to use if it floats in water. So literally just take a teaspoon of it, like that. The water needs to be warm, and you should put it in there. And if it floats, part of it is sunk, part of it's floating, so it's not at the best that it could be, but it's still fairly good to use. So as long as it just doesn't sink straight to the bottom of the water, then you're fine. So yeah, in here was 80 grams. Like that. And with your starter, if you're not planning on using it after you've made these pizzas, then you'd feed it, or I'd feed it one more time and then put it back in the fridge. That's in there. Yeah, and then you literally just break it up in the water, stir it in. Like that, and it should be quite foamy. And then you're going to add the liquid into the flour mixture. So I'll do half to start with. Do that one. Kind of want to squeeze it together just to make sure all the flour's in, and it'll stick to your hands, but it doesn't really matter. If you've got a scraper, that's good because you can get all the bits of flour off the side. If you find it sticks to your hands a bit like this, you just take a small amount of flour, just plain flour or bread flour, and just rub it between your hands like that, and it gets off all the bits. Like that. So I think says knead it for 5 minutes and then add the oil and knead again and work it for another couple of minutes. So I'll knead it on here. You don't really want to add much more flour, you kind of want to keep it as it is. It will be a bit wet, so it might stick. a little bit. You can do, if it's too wet, you can kind of knead it in the bowl. So you can do like by like hitting it against the side of the bowl. That works it a bit like that. Or you can just get it on the surface, and it's called a stretch and fold. So you pick it up in the middle, slap it, and turn it around like that. That'll come together a bit more, and you want to get to the point where when you knead it normally like this, it shouldn't really be sticking to the surface or your hands. It should just be like a big smooth ball. You can also use the bench scraper to kind of pick up pieces and help you. When you add, by adding the olive oil, it is a liquid, but it also makes it easier to handle. So it doesn't really make it wetter, it just makes it a bit easier to knead. It won't stick as much. I think in the recipe it says 10 grams. You can add more, a little bit more if you want it to be a bit easier to work with. But it also means when you cook the pizzas, the olive oil gives it a bit more of like a darker colour as well. That off. I think also if you have a KitchenAid, you can do the kneading in the KitchenAid if that's easier. Like that. And which is it? Yeah. So 10 grams of olive oil. Go. And you just want to kind of squish it in. Make sure it's all. take it out. Finish it on here. And the olive oil, you can feel it, it just makes it so much more smoother and easier to knead. Okay, let's get all the stuff off your hands. Sometimes I just use my hands, use your two pinky fingers, put them up the back of the dough, and when you pull your hands towards you, it creates tension on the bottom, and it just rolls the ball to like a nice tight circle, like that. It kind of smooths it out as you're doing it. Or if you've got a scraper, you can do the same. Like that. So that is ready to go back into the bowl. You can use the same bowl as before, and I think that's for half an hour. So you just leave that to rest for half an hour and then come back and do the next step.